Welcome to Indiana Sports Beat Radio, presented by Andy Moore Honda of Bloomington.
Know your role and shut your mouth, you jabroni!
Fires upfield into the end zone, and it's caught. Jelani Woods, touchdown! ISB! 43-point night for Tyrese Halliburton.
How do you like that, partner?
Galloway drives all the way to the hole, throws it up, got it! And Indiana's got their first lead of this contest.
It's pretty simple. I win. Google me.
Now, here's your host, Jim Coyle.
Hello, everybody. Welcome aboard on this Friday, March 8th. Thank you so much for being with us. Appreciate you, as always. Another edition of Indiana Sports Beat Radio coming at you. No matter how you're listening, we appreciate all of our peeps. 97.7 The Ref, ESPN, always the right call down in Evansville. 12:30 a.m., 104.7 FM, WJLB, the voice of the region. And 1380, the fan, 100.9 up in Fort Wayne as well. Or everyone on YouTube, which we appreciate you. Really appreciate if you hit that subscribe button. Indiana Sports Beat Radio brought to you by Andy Moore Honda. Just go to andymorehonda.com to get more to your door in the best in new and used vehicles. John, how are you doing today, sir?
I'm good. It's a Friday. It's almost the weekend, but we had some very interesting news drop last night on the Indiana basketball front that I believe you're going to get into.
Is that right? Well, before we do that, on the program today, Bob Kravitz will join us. I'm sure we'll have a conversation about anything like that. Casey Bartley from Boiler Upload will get into Big Ten tournament. Tyler Smith from thehoosier.com. And, boy, we're going to top it off with Sherron Wilkerson and Pat Graham, former Hoosiers, as they are going at it tomorrow in the IHSAA boys basketball, men's basketball tournament here in Indiana. They'll play each other. Jeffersonville taking on Evansville Harrison. And Evansville Harrison, the former school of Calbert Cheney. So all kinds of things there. Yeah, a little bit of news I hear. What is something popping? Did I miss something? Just kidding, of course. How's the John? How are you doing in Cincinnati? We appreciate you. Kevin down in Jeffersonville. Michael. Mike. Brian. Shenanigans. Robert. Heath. Russell. I'm trying to go down the list. Don't want to miss anybody, which I'll get to you in a little bit. Tony, I see you as well. Yeah, a lot of comments about crazy. It's sad. Liam McNeely decommitted. This is from Kevin. Don't know where Indiana goes from here. He says he's heard the reason he did commit is Woodson has not talked to him since he committed. I can't comment on that because I don't know whether that's true or not. Mike says it makes you wonder how Trent Sisley is going. Oh, how Trent Sisley is. I think he means the recruiting with Trent Sisley is going. There have been pictures of Painter going to see him play lately. Not sure about Woodson. I think I took that picture. That's the one he's referring to. Yeah, Indiana in a bit of a situation.
It's very odd, especially the way that things had been trending in the last week and a half.
Well, hold on. There's I was thinking about this, not to interrupt you. There are 3 comments that I wanted to put out. First of which would be Mike Woodson saying that college basketball runs from the inside out.
Yep.
Okay. That's a statement that most people disagree with. Then the announcement that Woodson would be returning to dispel any notions otherwise. And then the day after that comes the decommitment of Liam McNeely, Indiana's lone 2024 commitment. And that comes after a lot of talk of Woodson's lack of commitment to getting commitments. So I use it a bit of they're in trouble, in my opinion. It's just, there's a lot going on what daggone it, petition thing, although it was ridiculous, I think that reaches people outside and they see that and they don't know how big or small that it is. Just the sound of it was not a good look for Indiana. And I don't know where they go from here. I'm going to be honest with you. I really don't.
Yeah, this is not something that people had on their bingo card, as they say. It's tough to think, because I think a lot of people, including me, made this argument that you didn't need a massive freshman class if you were going to dive big into the portal this offseason. But the problem is you were putting in, and Jim, you mentioned this all the time, Indiana and Woodson put all of their eggs in one basket, and the basket this year was Liam McNeely. And you thought you had somebody like that, and you had him for a long time. And now, until we find out his reasoning, I mean, we don't know why he's decommitted, but he asked to be out of his national letter of intent. So, I mean, like you said, at the current moment, it's hard to see where Indiana will go from here. It is tough, especially when I've had a close look at what's been going on at Louisville over the past 2 years, and this is not unlike, I mean, other than the win and loss differential, because it is a big difference between the two schools. Other than that, you see a lot of similarities between Mike Woodson and Kenny Payne, and it's a little, if you're a fan, I'd be nervous. And Robert says, I bet even Louisville fans are more upbeat than this. Well, right now they are, because they've accepted the fact that they're moving on. It's over for them with Kenny Payne. They've been talking coaches and who's going to replace them or replace Kenny Payne at Louisville for the past 2 to 3 months. So they've already mentally moved on. Louisville fans know that era is over with Kenny Payne. This is becoming a lot more of an ugly breakup, at least in the early stages, so to speak, of a breakup right now. And I got to say, in the last 12 hours, it's quickly how things have changed mood-wise around the program since the ending of the Minnesota game.
Yeah, there was a lot of positivity going on. Indiana fans were feeling good. This team was looked at as one that can win their last 2 games, which they won one of them already. They only have 1 game remaining from the regular season against Michigan State. That would put them at 18 wins. You get into the Big Ten tournament. You win 2 games. You're at 20 wins. You're not going to the NCAA tournament, but you have a lot of positivity going. That kind of, no, I don't think anybody cares about that at the moment. And I just, again, like I said, I don't think, and this is just me personally, I just don't think Mike has the commitment to recruiting. He just does not understand the energy that it takes, the time that it takes. And part of it is ridiculous. I'll grant you that. But it doesn't matter. It is what it is. If you choose to work in an industry, I think he thought either he could change the industry or it's just a lack of knowledge. And I think it's more of a lack of knowledge. It's been pretty much the same old at Indiana with, you keep the same assistants from the previous regime, and there's just not a lot of good positive that has come out of that. And there's different factions. You've got factions that are behind Mike Woodson that think he's doing a great job. I don't know what they're watching. I don't know where they're getting, how they're developing that opinion. Those people are not completely educated on everything that goes with it. They're not up to date on the recruiting situation, the lack thereof. And I don't know the reason he decommitted. I'll be honest with you.
Do you think, and then this might sound like a stupid question, but do you think that he will, say why he decommitted? Surely somebody will ask him. Okay.
Absolutely not. Well, he'll give he'll be asked probably.
Answer.
Exactly. I just felt it was, wherever he land. Where does he land? A lot of
I saw speculation that Kansas
I've seen
already in play.
I've seen more Maryland.
Really?
Well, he'd go play with Derek Queen. They've got a great incoming class.
I guess.
But I'm not saying that that's going to happen. I have no idea on where he's going to land, because that could be anywhere. Anybody would take a Liam McNeely. He's a one and done. He's already on the NBA draft boards. I think part of the reason is, go back to the first thing I said today. The comment that Mike Woodson made, that college basketball runs from the inside out. Well, it doesn't.
Well, let me say, obviously Liam McNeely has a more personal connection than any of us do with Mike Woodson. Wouldn't you think he would already know that that's his offensive philosophy before he says something like that on the radio?
No, because I'm sure he's being told, hey, we're going to do this for you, and we're going to do that, and we're going to whatever. No, I don't. And why would I? Last year, if everyone will recall, what did Woodson say about the offense? That it's going to be so different, that they're going to be more I don't want, upbeat is not the word I'm looking for, but faster paced. He talked about how some changes are going. No changes. Same thing. 3 years of the exact same thing. So I don't know if it was, I have no idea. Everything I would say would be a guess as to why. My biggest reason, my biggest guess would be, look at what Indiana has done. They've gotten much worse with at least one NBA player on the team and potentially a second.
I'm going to say something real quick. Much worse is a bit of a stretch, and a lot of people probably won't forget this or won't remember the exact record, but Indiana in Woodson's first year, where they made the NCAA tournament, only had 20 wins that season. They're 3 wins away from that right now. Now, granted, they had more quality wins, and that's why they made the NCAA tournament.
There you
go.
But
it's not, you say it's much worse. It really isn't.
They're much worse. They are much worse as a team when you look at it statistically. Look at Ken Palm. Look at where they are.
I think they're built. They're not a team that's built for success necessarily. I agree with you on that.
And who is the architect of that?
I'm not saying any of this isn't Woody's fault. I'm just trying to go against your comment that it's not. You're making it sound like that they're eons worse than they've already been in the past.
Okay, let's use whatever word you want to use. I'll just say they're worse.
And that's fine. Yeah, of course.
They're
true.
They're not good. Things are not trending in a positive direction. Things are trending in a negative direction. There's a lot of negativity around the program, and don't blame me. Don't blame anybody else in the media. It's not the media's fault. The media is not recruiting. So there's that. We're going to take a break. Up next, we got the great Bob Kravitz from bobkravitz.com. If you haven't signed up there, you're surely missing out on a lot of great content. Thanks a lot for joining us today, and we'll be back with Bob Kravitz after this, brought to you by FreeThink. FreeThink apparel and logos for all of you if you're in the market, whether it's your go-to professional printed sportswear, team apparel, fan gear, signage, promotional products, and much more. Whether you need 24 t-shirts for your upcoming family reunion or 200 for this season's recreational softball league, FreeThink apparel meets your printing needs. Their team of industry experts will work with you to design a professional-looking, sales-generating web store for you for your custom-designed apparel. From large corporations and high school sports teams to national accounts and pro-led athletic camps, FreeThink Apparel delivers. Visit freethinkapparel.com today and get printing. Bob Kravitz with us up next right after this.
We'll be right back for more Indiana Sports Beat Radio with Jim Coyle, presented by Andy Moore Honda of Bloomington.
In the market.
Good morning, Bob.
Good morning. Trying to wake up. I look fuzzy. What's the deal here?
There you go. Looks a little better.
All right.
A lot of Liam McNeely talk to kick things off.
Yes, I would imagine. So I'm going to write a column about that today, and Woodson's available at 10:15. So that ought to be very interesting.
What would you say is the main reason? Because that was kind of our big discussion. Like, why would he? It could be a number of things, obviously.
Yeah, I would.
IU sucks.
Now I would hesitate to guess. You know, I mean, you're dealing with the whims of an 18-year-old in an open market. You know. By the way, hey Jim, if you get a chance, do you still have those Psalms cards?
No, but I can order more. I just will order more.
Would you mind? That would be great because the golf season's beginning, and I like to drink for free.
Golf, man. That's the one thing. The only time I ever tried golf was when I was in elementary school. There was like a little club. It wasn't even like a team, but there was for 4th and 5th graders. You could be in this golf club for a couple of weeks, and it just wasn't for me.
Yeah, I love it, man. I can't get enough of it. We were gonna play yesterday, and I got out there. I took my clubs out of my car. I said, it's too freaking cold.
I saw people outside playing. I
thought about it, but it was 46 degrees.
I was like, what in the hell is wrong with those people?
Well, I was almost one of those people, but sanity reigned.
I think it's supposed to be pretty nice early next week. I don't know for sure, but I think next week looks pretty good.
Yeah, we'll get out there, I'm sure. But yeah, I'm trying to think of exactly, what I want to say about McNeely. I mean, well, answer me this: why do they only have a class? Why do they only have a class of one guy?
Why do they have an open scholarship?
That's another good question.
From last season.
I don't know.
You can't fill it.
30 seconds, guys. Here we go.
For high-quality meats, bakery items, and now fresh seafood, Chop Shop Market and Table has the largest selection of in-house made products around and everything you need to make a gourmet meal at home. Or pick out a tomahawk steak or a grouper filet and enjoy it cooked to perfection in Chop Shop Steakhouse. Chop Shop Market and Table, a part of the Wild Food Group, is your butcher, baker, and fish house, no matter where you live.
This segment is brought to you by the Chop Shop, home of the Indiana football and men's basketball coaches shows. Welcome back to Indiana Sports Beat Radio with Jim Coyle, presented by Andy Moore Honda of Bloomington.
Welcome back, Indiana Sports Beat Radio here on this Friday, March 8th. Man, it's almost springtime. Appreciate you being with us. The great one, Bob Kravitz from bobkravitz.com with us now.
Hello, Jim.
How are you, sir?
Anything new?
Not a thing, man. Just same old boring Fridays. Looking forward to the games this weekend, IHSA games. I'm going to go see Sherron Wilkerson and Pat Graham go at it tomorrow. They play their team play. Yeah, they're going to be on the show later.
All right.
Yeah, so that'll be fun. I heard something about Liam McNeely potentially decommitting from Indiana. Boy, did that bust my phone up last night.
I can imagine.
It just started going off. Earlier, Mike, I said there are 3 statements that have been made within, I don't know, has it been a week or a little longer than that? Mike Woodson says college basketball still runs inside out. Then the declaration that Mike Woodson would return. And then the day immediately after that, Liam McNeely decommits.
I don't see a connection. Do you?
I
look, I don't have any great insight. I don't have Liam McNeely's number. I haven't texted him. And until he says,
you want it?
Yes, absolutely. Until he says something, we don't know. But gosh, I know Woody gets paid a lot of money. All these coaches get paid a lot of money. But when your job security is based on the whims of an 18-year-old, man, that's tough. That's just tough because 18-year-olds change their mind. I was going to say the way they change underwear, but with 18-year-olds, you never really know.
There's the true that. A major hit for Indiana, though, was 0 recruits now on the board. They only had the one, which was Liam. Prior to that, not a great sign. Then there was the fact that Mike Woodson, everything it was made a big deal that when the weekend of Indiana sectional play, he was the only major coach in the state that was not out and about watching guys play.
Well, there seems to be this idea that Mike just doesn't work very hard. And I don't know. I honestly don't know what the truth is because I'm not around Mike every day and don't know his schedule. That was one game. That was, I think, Sisley was playing that night. But gosh, what are they going to do? They got to go heavy and hard into the portal. I don't know. I assume Renew's coming back. I assume Mbako is coming back. I'm guessing Galloway is going to use his 5th year. Leal, but some guys are going to transfer. It's going to be an empty bucket there at Indiana University.
McNeely might have decided that he was going to decommit prior to Indiana's announcement that Woodson was coming back. I don't know. I can tell you this. When I was down there, I went down to Montverde,
I know.
For the invitational tournament. And one of the things I asked both of the Derek Queen and Liam, are you watching the games? I specifically asked Liam, are you watching the games and seeing where your game may be able to help Indiana? And I've said this before, so this is not anything new. But as soon as I stopped speaking, I'm talking to Liam. Off camera is Derek Queen. And if you go back and listen to that interview, you can hear someone say, shooting. And it was Derek Queen that said that. Mm-hmm. So that at that moment, I knew Derek Queen was not coming to Indiana. I didn't
Makes sense.
Say a lot about that because it didn't have anything other than that guess, but I'm like, yeah, he's not coming. I think that he has a television like the rest of us do. And he knows what the situation is. I just, it's hard to say because it's all a guess.
It's all a guess.
It's all a guess, and let me be the first person to say that.
Well, look, they were playing poorly early in the season, and he was still committed.
Yeah, I think that
and they've won 3 in a row. They're starting to play better. It just doesn't make sense, you know. And I don't think I think you're right. I think this is a decision that he made maybe a short while ago. Because what's changed? I mean, it's not like they're suddenly playing bad. I mean, they've been bad all year long. You know, it can't be the fact that they announced that Woodson is coming back. You know, I was on Twitter late last night, and some people were saying, you know, it's the fans' fault that they chased him away. I think that's
horse crap.
That's nonsense.
Yeah, that's horse
nonsense. IU fans are no different, honestly, than North Carolina, Kansas. You go down the line. I mean, IU.
Let me tell you, if you put Kentucky fans in the situation that Indiana fans are currently in with what they've had to deal with, it would be tyranny. I truly believe that. I get the frustration of Indiana fans.
Sure.
I do. And do they go overboard? Yeah. The petition, I think that was stupid.
That was ridiculous.
Absolutely. But that's what passion gets you. That's what happens. But when you are successful, that's why you have one of the greatest fan bases that there are, because they're massive. So you got to take the good and the bad.
Yeah, I don't buy that for 1 second. I mean, the petition was really it was really bad form. I don't even know who started that, but yeah, I was thinking this morning. I was having my coffee. I was thinking, how can I spin this forward? And honestly, until Mike Woodson talks today at 10:15 on the Zoom call, and I don't know how much he's going to be willing to talk about it, to be honest.
I bet you very, very little. I bet you he stands behind the, hey, we're not allowed to talk about certain recruits BS line because they're not allowed to name them. But I think this is a conversation you could have where it would not fall into that.
No,
but be obvious as to what we're talking about.
Right. I would be very curious if this will force Woody to change the way he recruits, because he kind of went big. He took a mighty swing this year. He was looking at Derek Queen and Boogie, Fland, and McNeely. I wonder if he'll change the way he approaches recruiting. That would be my question.
Well, changes it how?
Well, maybe doesn't go for the guys who are top 20, I mean, go for one of those and then start recruiting guys who look like they can play in your system the way, I don't know, Purdue does. I mean,
Bob, that would require having to actually get out, go watch guys, evaluate them, and get them into your system and elevate their play.
Are you suggesting? I'm sorry. Are you suggesting? And I'm putting you on the spot. Are you suggesting that Woody is not putting the time necessary into recruiting and whatnot?
I do not think he understands the commitment that it takes to be a college coach time-wise.
Okay.
I truly do.
You're closer to it than I am, so I'll take your word for it.
I do not think that he has an understanding of the time commitment that it takes. I really don't. And I will first, let me say, it's a little ridiculous some of the time that you have to do. You have to, love on these guys so much. Go see them and extra. And there's a little bit of ridiculousness to that. I'll say that. But it does not erase the fact that you have to do what you have to do.
Right. That was one
have that energy.
That was one of the things that when I was with the Athletic and Woodson got the job, I caught a lot of crap for saying, I don't know if a guy who's, 66, if he's going to have the energy and the desire to do all the garbage work that's required in the recruiting process. But again, I'm not there every day. I don't know his schedule. Yes, he didn't go to a sectional. I'm not going to hold that against him. But if there's a larger issue there, then that's something that Indiana's got to address.
Well, I can also tell you this. All right, his radio show. I know of at least 4 occasions that he was not at his own radio show.
Wow. Okay.
Maybe
he was out recruiting.
Maybe.
I'm just guessing. I have no idea.
Maybe.
Yeah, but
maybe.
What's the point of a national letter of intent?
That's the next question. That's a great question, Bob, because they're now request a release from that, which Indiana does not have to give. Someone asked me, does Indiana have to give? No, they don't.
No.
But if you don't, you're looked at as holding somebody hostage.
Right.
And how well do you expect that relationship to be if you're making somebody come? Because I promise you the next thing would be a lawsuit because the NCAA loses everything. And if that happened, that would maybe bring down the house.
That would bring down the house. No doubt about it. I mean, that's a no-brainer. You got to give him his release. And, I mean, the saving grace, I think, is that with the portal the way it is, you can get well fast. And Indiana's got, Woody's going to have to really beat the bushes. God knows they have the money in NIL. They're set up well. But Woody's going to have to, this is going to be a very key summer for him, spring and summer, to bring in a couple of human beings. And as I mentioned before, we don't know who else is going to transfer.
No,
I would think that Renew's back. I would think even though Mbako is starting to play like a late draft pick, I would think he's back. I would hope. I would assume that Galloway will probably use the COVID year and stick around. But, that none of those things are sure things. And how is it going to affect those guys knowing that McNeely is not coming? The direction of this thing is really fraught with danger.
Very much so, because now Indiana is in danger next season of being, next year could be really ugly.
It could be really ugly.
Really ugly. And did Indiana put themselves in a worse position by that? The announcement that Mike Whitson would be back. First of all, that's something you normally don't see. Zach Osterman, who broke that story, was on with us yesterday, and it had just got out of hand enough that they felt they needed to say something.
Well, the portal is just starting to open, correct? It doesn't the portal?
It doesn't open until after the NCAA tournament, I believe, right?
Yeah, okay. Well, I think
that's not true. As soon as the regular season ends for your team, you can go in the portal.
Right. And
there are certain players that are already in the portal right now.
That's what I thought. And so I think they wanted to make sure that the kids knew, and that's one of the problems when you have a 66-year-old coach. Again, I think he's 66.
65, something like that.
Yeah, he's around my age because we went to school together. But I think that they felt compelled, with all the noise out there, to make it clear to recruits that Woody was going nowhere, because that they're using his age against him. They did that with Gene Cady late in his career. They said, well, why do you want to go to Purdue? He's 100 years old. He's not going to be there, by the time you're a junior. So what's the point? So I think that that had a whole lot to do with it. I had no problem with them saying what they said because there was so much noise.
Yeah, and there's going to have to be a lot done to kind of mend this chasm with the fans. But the great thing about Indiana fans is they're still going to show up for the most part. But there's just a lot of wailing and gnashing of teeth over this spring. Oddly enough, Liam McNeely and Montverde will be participating in the Chipotle National Finals right here in Brownsburg. So that's going to be odd this summer as well.
Where does he end up? Kansas?
As John talked about earlier, that's definitely an option. But also a lot of people, when Maryland keeps popping up, joining Derek Queen there, and they have a decent recruiting class coming in. They play a much more modern style of basketball, for one thing. And I'm going to be honest with you. If you want to break it down, if I had to, which I do have to, if I had to give you my guess, it's because of the style of basketball Indiana plays.
Yeah, but
it's not fun.
It's not fun, but you got to play to your strengths. And where's their strength? I mean, they can't play, 4 out. They can't play. They can't play small. I mean, all their best players are big guys in the front court with with Renew and Ware and Mbako. I think he's just trying to play to his strength. When you've got no guard play, I don't know that you can play any other way than inside out. So I don't know. It's just mysterious, this whole thing.
Yeah, you don't have to be a team that hits 12 3-pointers a game. You just need 7 to 8 solid ones when you have a team like Indiana. But that's something that they were not able to do.
No.
And
if anything, Jim, I would think McNeely would look at this team and say, "Holy crap! There's a big chasm there I can fill." He's got to look at this team and say they've got no outside shooting. Hey, wait a minute! I'm a hell of an outside shooter. I could really, play a ton right away and help this team a lot. So I don't think the style of play has anything to do with it. I'll be curious if he ever addresses this. I would hope that he would at some point, but I doubt that he will.
No, he is not. He's not been direct at or dealing with many things that are direct. It's if you ask a question like that, it kind of gets taken in a different direction, or you're going to hear about injuries and different things like that. And then there's you've got different factions of fans. You got one group that totally supports what he's doing, others that do not, and it's not for me to decide someone's job status. I did, but I am not going to lie. And people think that, why are you so negative? I'm not negative. I'm just telling you what is happening, what I see. And if what I see is what it is, that's just how it is. And it's just not, there's not a lot of positivity. There's very little positivity right now in this program. And when you have to have the administration say that you will be back, that's not positive. And then you have your biggest and only recruit decommit the day after that. I find it hard to believe that that's a coincidence.
How many guys could they have gone after? How many scholarships did they have going into?
Well, first of all, you have the open scholarship from last year that they didn't fill.
Right.
Then you've got Xavier Johnson that'll be leaving. You've got Walker that'll be leaving.
Right.
There's someone else. I'm expecting Ware to be in the NBA.
Right. Oh, absolutely.
Right off the bat. So there's 4. But let's take a quick break because we're late. right, John?
I wasn't telling you to take a break. I was just going to answer one of your things you were trying to figure out, but you can go ahead and take it too. That works as well.
But go ahead and answer what you were going to say.
No, you answered your own question with Khalil Ware.
Oh, perfect. Appreciate you. Let's take a quick break so I don't overload John, and we'll be back with more Indiana Sports Beat Radio. Bob Kravitz from bobkravitz.com is with us right now. Back with more right after this.
We'll be right back for more Indiana Sports Beat Radio with Jim Coyle, presented by Andy Moore Honda of Bloomington.
If you're looking for a home in the... Hey, is Casey supposed to be on now?
I tried texting you earlier. I was trying to say you can go a little bit longer with Bob because I don't think Casey's going to come on because he normally doesn't come on at 9:10, but he didn't get back to me when I asked him to switch. So
okay, no worries.
Don't worry about it.
We'll just roll with this for a second.
If you're able to stay, Bob, obviously do what you got to do.
Oh, I got so much to do. I got to drink coffee, take a leak.
What is your mailbag is the most recent piece out, right? The last thing I saw.
Trying to think. What the hell? Hang on a second. I wrote something else. Oh no, I wrote about Scott Pollard getting a new heart.
Oh, yes. How about that?
Yeah, it took him. He went to the hospital 8-9 days later. He gets a new heart. It's a miracle.
I remember that being talked about last year, I think.
Well, a couple months ago, I wrote a column. So did Greg. We both wrote about him needing a new heart. So that was a lot. I wrote that on Wednesday, and I'll write McNeely today.
I'd say Indiana needs a new heart, but that probably wouldn't go over well.
Yeah, probably not. It's pretty funny, though. Oh, gosh.
Yeah, Tim, that's a good question. You've got how many? Where is it?
I'm assuming that Galloway's coming back. I mean, I don't.
It's only an assumption until he makes it otherwise.
Same with anybody transferring, if we're being honest.
But see, now he's those guys have leverage. I'm like, if I'm those guys, I'm going to Hoosiers for good and saying, I need a little more cheese.
Yeah, maybe so. Maybe.
I need a little more cheese.
College sports, you gotta love them.
Khalil Ware, Walker.
All right, 30 seconds.
In Bloomington, right now, get a brand new Honda with no payments for 9
Xavier.
You'll have about 10, a little less than 10 minutes here, by the way.
pilots, HRVs, CRVs, Honda Ridgelines, payment free for 90 days. Or get 0.9% APR financing for 36 months on a 2023 Honda Ridgeline. Go to AndyMooreHonda.com and get more to your door.
This segment is brought to you by Remax Advanced Realty, Indy Home Pros team by Cheryl Sizemore. Welcome back to Indiana Sports Beat Radio with Jim Coyle, presented by Andy Moore Honda of Bloomington.
Hey, welcome back on this Friday. Appreciate you being with us. Brought to you by our good friend Cheryl Sizemore from Remax Realty. If you're in the market for a home in the Indianapolis area, you need her 2 decades of experience. Could be the difference between getting the home you want or not. Reach out to her, Cheryl at IndyHomePros.com. Bob Kravitz from BobKravitz.com with us now. If you're not following him there, you're missing out on just tons of Indiana-related content. And I'm talking about the state of Indiana, whether it's the Pacers, the Colts, the Hoosiers, the Boilers, Notre Dame, Butler, whatever. He's got it all. And right now, of course, we're talking about the decommitment of Liam McNeely to Indiana, which he was their lone commit in the 2024 class. That's a gigantic worry. That makes 4 holes that we know of, Bob, that Indiana will have to fill next year. And there's potentially could be more. And so it's not
optimal.
Construction. No, because roster
optimal.
construction has been a problem for Woody, which is why they're in the position that they're in right now. Part of that, I've said this before. I've never seen a coach come in and keep the staff from the previous staff that was fired for losing, which is basically what happened here. Other than the couple of guys, Thad Matta and Dane Fife, who were hired for him,
right,
and who was no longer with the program soon thereafter. It just seems a little odd to me when you don't bring your own guys in, and then the guys that he does add is consultants, NBA types, and none of which have experience recruiting college kids, coaching college kids, running a college offense, running a college program. So it's just a lot of things that add up that are not in the positive category.
No, and look, I just don't. Look, you can't overstate how important this kid was going to be, but this is, you put all your eggs in this basket, this kind of stuff's going to happen. And I think, and Indiana fans hate to hear this, but I think Purdue's got it figured out. They go after the big guys, but they're not totally reliant on top 10, top 11 guys. And, it's just such a bad reflection on Woody. Again, I don't know if he's not working hard enough. I'm not even sure where that rumor came from. I know that Tony Adranya had a tweet about him not showing up at a sectional. Again, we're just guessing. Hopefully we'll get a little more clarity today at 10:15, but I seriously doubt it.
Oh, absolutely. I'm not sure that that'll be a conversation had there, although I would be shocked if the first question is not that. But you can't talk about specific recruits, which that's another idiotic rule at this point. Who cares whether you say their name or not? My God, we know who we're talking about here.
Well,
let's get into the real world.
You can speak in generalities, and there's no reason why you can't address the elephant in the room. And it's just, I just wonder if the desire to go after, as this Anthony Lennon says here, you go after these 5 stars, and this is going to happen. I mean, it's going to happen with 4 stars, 3 stars, but most of those guys are just happy to have a place to play basketball and study. 5 stars, they're looking NBA. They want it now. They want it today. And again, we're just guessing as to the motivations behind this McNeely decision.
Yeah, I can't. I can only, like I said, guess but I just, there's no way that they're not watching what's going on, in totality, and just saying, I'm the only guy they got coming in right now. Right. When you look at other programs, whether it's Duke or Kentucky or Kansas, I don't care who it is, Maryland, and you see what they're bringing in, and then you look at Indiana, and once again, it's just kind of empty.
Yeah, it's completely empty. That's the, I mean, it's a big zero. I mean, they to get this kind of recruiting class, they all could have gone to Aruba for the last couple of months and just hung out on the beach and drank cocktails.
Yeah, Liam McNeely is expected to be a one-year college player.
Right.
One and done and on to the NBA. He's already on the draft board. Now,
Right.
does that mean that can't change? Of course it can. But his expectations are to go play one season someplace.
Right.
And he's probably now decided that, you know what, if I'm going to be there for a year, I still want to be on a winner. I want to have a shot at doing something, having fun. I don't know that he sees Indiana that way anymore.
I don't understand that, because this team hasn't changed since early in the season when he made that decision. I mean, he knows what kind of team they have. And I would think that he would look at it and say, my God, the one thing they lack is a knockdown shooter, and I'm a knockdown shooter. So,
but you've got Mackenzie Mbako, who has come on here at the end of the season in that regard, averaging 16 points over the last 6 or so games. He's shooting way over 40% from behind the arc. So his game has finally come around. It just took 80% of the season to get there.
Right. But I mean, still, McNeely has got to feel like he'd be a change maker in this on this team. I don't believe that their struggles, and I could be dead wrong, but I have a hard time believing that their struggles this year left a bad taste in his mouth where he thought, this is not the place I want to go. Again, it's a guess. And, I will reach out to Liam. I will get no response, but
I've reached out to him. I doubt I get a response either. But you also have the fact that he plays with Derek Queen, who was a big-time IU recruit. And he tried to get Derek Queen to follow him and come to IU and was not successful.
Right.
And now you have to wonder what Derek Queen is telling Liam, why he decided not to go there, especially with Kalel Ware most likely gone and that role going to be wide open.
Sure.
It's all speculation. Again, I'll say it 1,000 times over and over and over, but there are just some facts that we're going to point out that are facts. And they are what they are. But you hit it on the nail on the head. They have the freedom to do whatever they want. And it just hasn't gotten better for Indiana. And I think that's been, plus he's been very, very busy with his own season. I mean, they play a juggernaut of a season at Montverde. They're undefeated. His focus has been there. Kevin Boyle probably does not allow their focus to stray very far. So he's been more attuned to what's going on with that. You've got a piece that you're going to put out, of course, about this, I'm sure, after Mike Whitson speaks at his presser today. Yes. So that's what's coming up next for you, right?
Absolutely. And I've got a pretty decent piece up on the site right now. I got a mailbag, so you can take a look at that. But I also doubled back with Scott Pollard, the former Pacer, former NBA center. I had written on January 15th about how he needed a heart transplant. And miraculously, he thought he was going to have a really hard time finding a heart because he's such a big man. He's 6'11", 300 pounds. But miraculously, he got one down at the Vanderbilt heart hospital, and he's doing well. And I have a story up on bobkravitz.com with Pollard talking about the journey. So there you go.
Absolutely. So make sure you're connected with bobkravitz.com. If not, you are missing out on all of that. Robert, thank you, sir. Appreciate you.
Appreciate you, buddy.
Have a great one. Bob Kravitz of bobkravitz.com joining us here on this Friday on Indiana Sports Beat Radio. We've got much more coming up. Tyler Smith from thehoosier.com joins us. And then after that, Sherron Wilkerson and Pat Graham, two former Hoosier teammates, are we going at it this weekend in the Indiana High School Boys Basketball Tournament. They'll be joining us as well. Back with more after this.
We'll be right back for more Indiana Sports Beat Radio with Jim Coyle, presented by Andy Moore Honda of Bloomington.
In the market. Holy smokes.
Good morning, Tyler.
Good morning.
Or say something else for me. Your audio sounded a little odd.
Check 1 2. Check 1 2.
All right. Also, can you turn your maybe wherever your speaker is, turn that down just slightly because I heard a little echo.
Yep. How's that?
Like when I talk. Let me see. Okay, I think that's better.
I don't hear an echo.
Well, it's gone now. There was an echo when I initially said something to him.
I was just letting you know.
All right.
Holy cannolis. Well,
One thing and maybe it's not worth you all discussing, but one possibility we haven't even mentioned, like, what if he does like the G League thing? What if he's not going to do college, period?
who?
McNeely.
That's not going to be happening.
And I think I would agree with you right now.
I'll tell you why. Because he will make 10 times the money at a college next year than he would in G League.
Well, there's still other players that do the G League, though. It's not like it's not something people do.
Yeah, but probably not as good as.
I mean, you look at the NBA mock draft for this year, the top 5 or 6 guys taken out are either overseas guys or G League players. And again, that's speculation, so it's a mock draft, but
always a great. That's always
it's just something we haven't mentioned. And
Yeah.
honestly, I'm with you. I don't think he'll go that route, but that would be, I feel like, a little more palatable if that were something he decided to do instead of playing for a different college program.
Oh, absolutely, it would be much more palatable. But I don't think that's what's going to happen.
And I agree. We hadn't brought that up yet. I wanted to know your thoughts.
But that is always a good.
Where are you at this morning, Tyler? Are you in your car somewhere?
No, I am outside the office here, but they got some work going in my normal spot.
Okay. All right, here we go, guys.
What?
Shore Construction, now building exclusively south of Bloomington within the Stonecrest Golf community. Choose from one of the gorgeous Stonecrest Signature Series house plans. We have several lots available with scenic views of the golf course. Contact Amy Rhoda with Rebesco Real Estate for additional information. 812-583-0919 or go to mystonecrestliving.com. That's mystonecrestliving.com for more details. This segment is brought to you by Hoosier Hanks East. Welcome back to Indiana Sports Beat Radio with Jim Coyle, presented by Andy Moore Honda of Bloomington.
Welcome back, Indiana Sports Beat Radio, here on this Friday. Get you headed up for the weekend. Joined now by Tyler Smith from thehoosier.com. And first, before we get into any more of the Liam McNeely issues, have to mention that John Eisenbarger passed away. He helped lead Indiana football to their only Rose Bowl appearance as a punter, a 2-time All-American running back and star of Indiana's lone Rose Bowl team in 1968, has passed away. Indiana Athletics has announced he was 76. He's a member of the Indiana's Football Hall of Fame and was a 2-time All Big Ten selection, the school's number 10 all-time leading rusher with 1,217 yards. Eisenbarger was also an accomplished punter, leading the Big Ten in that category in 1967. So a hell of an all-around athlete. And so thoughts to his friends, family, and all of those around him. Hate to see that happen. Joining us now, Tyler Smith from thehoosier.com. Tyler, how are you doing, sir?
I'm doing all right. It's been a whirlwind of a couple weeks, hasn't it, for Indiana?
It certainly has been a whirlwind of a week even. But yes, and then last night, of course, the house kind of a major crack in the foundation, let's say. was found as Liam McNeely decommits from the Indiana basketball program. And right now, all we have is a lot of guesses and speculation to go along with that. But it's not good for Indiana, no matter what the reason ends up being.
Yeah, there's no way to sugarcoat it. This is devastating news for the program. We were thinking that whole time when they only had one commit, it was obviously a concern, but less of a concern when it was a player of his caliber. It's all the plans, all the talk of, how to build the roster for next year. You kind of had that safety net, that stud coming in, that shooter that, you could go portaling and kind of fill out. Hopefully you keep a couple key players, you bring in him, and then things look a lot better. But you lose that, and now obviously a massive concern. I think it's the first time in 21 years they've had 0 commits as late as March 8th. So it's rough. The timing, we can speculate all we want. It's the offense or how the program's been perceived lately, or there's another program more attractive right now, or whatever it is. Like Bob said, we're kind of guessing at this point, and hopefully we'll have answers pretty soon. But it is just a devastating blow for the program.
Yeah, and the reason a lot of the time doesn't matter. Right now, it does matter because Indiana is in such flux. The program is in such a position of a lot of factions not agreeing with where the program is, where it's going, how it's being run, and the fact that this announcement comes one day after two things. One day after being announced that he was an All-American in high school, and one day after the Woodson will be back proclamation.
Yeah, it's pretty wild timing, when a lot of fans were kind of feeling at least a little bit of optimism. Not that a 3-game win streak against, some weaker teams is a huge deal. It's probably too little too late for this season, of course, but there was at least a little bit of optimism. Okay, like we know what's gonna be in place for next year. Now let's go get it done from the roster side. And then you have, probably the worst news they can imagine at that time. So it's crazy, the news hit. The thing that was surprising is because of how much, this kid seemed to really embrace wanting to be a Hoosier. It was almost, he kind of treated it like he was an Indiana kid that couldn't wait to wear the candy stripes. And
he was explicit about that when I was down there at the Mate talking to him. He was just uber positive. It was almost like he had practiced that and was giving just an over exuberant answer.
Yeah, and every time he talked, he would mention the struggles the teams had and how they need shooting and how it's like I'm going to be part of that. It was never, fans often freak out about if a team's doing poorly that, recruits are not going to want to come there. And more times than not, it's about how the next year's team looks and how they feel they fit. And every time he spoke, I never got the sense that this is going to be trouble because they're struggling. He seemed like the guy that was going to come be part of the solution, and just didn't work out unless something crazy happens and he recommits at a later date. It's just it's tough.
Yeah, and where he ends up is going to be watched very closely by Indiana fans. Kansas was always involved in that, although there's always going to be a spot for a guy that can shoot, a guy that is projected as an NBA player 1 year and 1 year after college. He's going to be welcomed by any college team. I don't care what their roster situation is like. But whether he ends up at, say, Kansas, potentially Maryland, where Derek Queen is, and who can definitely use his services. So it's going to be interesting to see where he winds up.
Yeah, it's going to be tough wherever he goes. I think probably every single school in the nation would gladly take him. So it's that'll be interesting. And too, the talk of the last couple of weeks, whether any of it was true or not, but if there was any conversation about what to do with the staff moving forward, I'm sure that Mr. McNeely was part of that discussion as far as we got this stud coming next year. Let's see what we can do around that. And now that's gone, you wonder if any of those talks would be any different or not. But it's pretty wild, and Indiana's got a ton of work to do. They're gonna have to fill maybe as many as 7, 8 spots in the portal. So it's going to be a wild couple months coming up.
Yeah, and the way that Indiana has recruited is going to have to be examined. And the concern I would have if I was an Indiana fan is Mike Woodson has not seemed to examine much of what he's done thus far in these 3 seasons, not changing anything. Although the offense was said to going to be changed this year, was not. Everything was the same. Not a lot of effort, or not the effort being seen in recruiting as being seen by other schools. There's just so much that is kind of behind this, and then that snowball is starting to gain momentum with the fans, and you just have to wonder that for once, did this reach far enough that it got to Liam McNeely in Florida?
Yeah, and I heard Bob mention previously, and you and I have talked before about how this program has put too many eggs in the basket of too few baskets, and it's happened again. And whether it's a recruit that they didn't get, or in this case, a recruit that they did, but it's like this has to hit. This has to be a thing that stays. And the fact that it's not, now you go into already having an open scholarship, having at least 2 guys graduating, 2 others that have a COVID decision, multiple guys with MBA or transfer decisions, and you don't have a single recruit. I saw, one fan said we literally can't even pay people to come play at this school right now, which is, unfortunately the case in some instances, that without a single recruit locked in for the next couple of years.
That's a true statement that I hadn't thought of. I think McNeely winds up at Kansas. I'm going to be honest with you. And the why? Well, I said it earlier before you joined us that although he's expected to be a 1-year player, I don't think he wants to go someplace and struggle on a team that's struggling. And next year, Indiana is looked at as another rebuild. And where that can be the case for some teams, Indiana has not done well in the rebuild. It's only been 1 season since Trace Jackson Davis and Jalen Hood-Schifino left, but they had some success with that level of talent. They made it to the NCAA tournament and they won a game. Well, there's going to be very mediocre programs that have more success than that this season alone. And now that won't happen this season, period. And the questions going into next year with just 1 recruit on the board probably gave Liam McNeely great concern as a player, because even though he was only expected to be in 1 year, he probably would like to have a blast and win games and just all that goes with that at a program like, for instance, Kansas is experiencing, or whomever, or a team that he views that is potentially heading in that direction. That could be Maryland. I don't know. But Dairy Queen going there, they've got some great recruits coming in. Indiana has none of that. And I think that it's all of that in totality. Indiana just has nothing going for it for next year. Nothing. And it's pretty obvious to see. So Liam McNeely is not blind. He's not going to not get paid at Kansas or Maryland or wherever he ends up. He's going to get paid the same, if not more. Hell, he's probably going to make more in Kansas now, just because they want him and they know that they have a much better shot at him now that Indiana is out of the way.
Yeah, that's my guess as well, as where he goes. And, probably want to go somewhere that is a consistent winner. And there's obviously some scenarios where Indiana could have been and could be a solid team next year, but it's much more up in the air than a team like Kansas, who for a fact is going to be good and is going to be in the mix. And so he probably doesn't want to leave that up to chance. And again, we speculate. We don't really know the timing of why didn't he do this sooner. If he saw, the fact that Indiana didn't have much going for it, and now they win 3 in a row, announce their coach is coming back, then he makes a decision. It's kind of interesting, the timing of it all. But fans talk about last year and a lot, and we've mentioned how it was a solid season, but that should be the norm. Like last year should be kind of the floor for the program, where you're a 4 seed, you win a tournament game, win some big games here and there. Like, yeah, solid season. That's not a huge year by any means, and that should be kind of the baseline for what an average season should look like. And the fact that fans point to that as this some kind of successful season, it's concerning. And for the future, fans have every right to have a pretty big level of concern.
Well, and I have to wonder what is in the mind of Scott Dolson this morning or last night. He just, it didn't come from him directly per se, but the confirmation that Mike Woodson would return next year, and the very next day, your only commit, who was a big time, who was also the commit that you would probably use as bait for other people, to be honest with you. Yep. Hey, we've got Liam coming in and yada yada. Now you've got a big old empty basket. And yep. What is you're out fishing with an empty basket, and your bait is running low. Your bait is obviously not attracting the fish. Either you don't know where to fish, or you don't know how to fish. It's one of the two. Who's bringing in these recruits besides NIL? What is the staff doing? What are these assistants? Who are these assistants bringing in? Who's evaluating talent? And there are so many questions for this Indiana staff and program right now that they're going to have to answer. And it's not a good look at all for this Indiana program.
Yeah, not only would McNeely help with bringing other fish in, but it would also have been a huge help in keeping some of the players that are currently on the roster. I don't know anything. I don't have any inside info for a guy like Malik Renew or somebody like that may test the waters. And obviously, if McNeely was coming in, that would be a better opportunity to, okay, we're gonna build this thing. We got a stud shooter coming in. Now that could open the floodgates even more than what was going to happen. So here in just a few weeks or a month's time, lots of names are going to go in the portal. Obviously, they can come back. A lot can happen. A lot of roster movement can happen. But based on our the previous couple of years here, you're not going to have a ton of optimism and a whole lot of worry at this point.
Well, right now, Indiana will have 4 open spots for next year, including the open scholarship they have left over that they could not fill last year. That does not include any potential portal entries. And mainly, I'm going to talk about Mackenzie Mbako and Malik Renew, because if either or both of those guys happen to hit the portal, Indiana becomes a Division II program instantly. And they're in grave peril.
Yeah, I mean, you start to see a scenario where you're talking like not as big as the first Crean year, but shortly after that, I mean, even this season by the numbers has been worse statistically than the 4 Archie Miller years. And we're talking a possibility of being worse, like a good possibility of it being worse unless major things happen in the next 2 months. So
we'll certainly keep up on it. What's coming up with you on thehoosier.com?
Well, we got Senior Day coming Sunday, and it's going to be interesting. We'll have article about Mike Woodson's presser that's coming up, Zoom call here in about 30 minutes is when he talks. So we'll see what he has to say about the situation, if anything, but also the 3-game win streak and the seniors coming up on Sunday.
There you go. Ironically, as I'm looking right now, a tweet from our friend Rick Bozich with Louisville coach and Jocelyn Sannon, the number 11 overall recruit in the 2025 class. Pictured with Kenny Payne. You're able to get those guys there. It's crazy. Thanks a lot, Tyler. We make sure you give Tyler a follow at thehoosier.com and keeping you up on all things Indiana news and recruiting.
Have a good one.
Thank you, sir. We've got lots more coming up here on Indiana Sports Beat Radio. Former sharpshooter Pat Graham, now an assistant with Evansville Harrison, and Sherron Wilkerson, the head coach at Jeffersonville, should be joining us as they're going to be going head-to-head again for the second time this season. But this time, the marbles are a lot bigger. Back with more right after this.
We'll be right back for more Indiana Sports Beat Radio with Jim Coyle, presented by Andy Moore Honda of Bloomington.
Formerly,
send if you have Sherron, well, I know you have his number. Send him a text. All I have is his email, and let him know that the link that I sent him.
I'm doing it right now. Pat, how are you today, brother?
Doing good. How are you doing, bub?
Oh, you know, just
I'm sure today's show.
Yeah, last night sure took a turn.
Wow.
By the way, that thing you mentioned about Josan Sanan, Louisville, that's all a publicity thing.
Yeah.
He's not going to Louisville. Unless he's committing to Louisville and not Kenny Payne, because Kenny Payne's done.
Yeah. Well, he may not be the only one. That I don't know where they turn, Patrick. Todd texted me. He just said, "Now what?"
I know Sherron and them. I think Sherron and them went to Southridge 2 days ago. You know, everybody gets their practice if they don't play there. So we went up yesterday, and I always have to have my phone near me because of my insulin pump. And so after our hour and a half or whatever, I walked over and I had like 27 text messages. I'm like, what the hell's going on? And then I saw the first one and I'm like, oh, I called it 3 weeks ago. I won't say that I knew it was going to happen. I just said, what if this does happen? And so, I mean, I hate to say it, but it really wasn't.
I need to save this.
Well, I really wasn't. Honestly, I really wasn't that surprised. I hate to say that.
I think that if most people would think about it, you shouldn't be surprised. I think fans, it's just not something that they even wanted to consider the possibility of that happening.
Todd's 100% right. Todd was the first one I called, and we talked, and of course, ping pong some thoughts, but Todd's 100% right. And what fans don't understand is that kid's from Texas. That kid's played the last 2 or 3 years in Florida, and he's coming to Indiana. And that's not, you know, everybody lives in this vacuum. Like when we
bring in Sherron, and then we'll come back from break. So I don't mean to interrupt you, Pat. I just know.
No, you're fine. But we all were going there, like Sherron, Nover, Todd Leary, Pat. Indiana was a big part. Like that kid's from Texas and Florida, dude. He doesn't care about
10 seconds, guys.
And I totally get it.
3 Honda Ridgeline. Go to AndyMooreHonda.com and get more to your door.
This segment is brought to you by Brothers 33 in Clarksville and Evansville. Pizza, burgers, beer. Welcome back to Indiana Sports Beat Radio with Jim Coyle, presented by Andy Moore Honda of Bloomington.
Hey, welcome back on this Friday as we get you ready for the weekend, and lots going on, including the Indiana High School Boys Basketball Tournament. Joining us now, 2 former greats from Indiana, Pat Graham and Sherron Wilkerson, former teammates. We had them on earlier, which it was great. We got to hear some great stories from those guys. They were getting ready to play earlier this year. I never thought about you guys potentially playing again. So that's kind of crazy and fun to watch. Of course, thank you guys, Sherron and Pat, for joining us.
Thank you.
Pleasure. Absolute pleasure.
Before I get to obviously what we were going to talk about last night, big news breaking with Indiana's only recruit for 2024 and a major one at 5-star Liam McNeely decommitting from Indiana the day after it was, I don't want to say leaked, but put out that Mike Woodson would be returning, and he decommits from here. And Todd Leary texted me and just said, "Now what?" And I'm like, "Oh, that's a great question." And Pat, you talked about that you'd kind of saw this coming.
I know nothing. I don't know the kid. I don't know. I haven't talked to anyone up there. I just had the way the season was going, and then, you got one kid, one recruit. I mean, Sherron came to IU with a number of guys. I come with 7. I don't know. It's kind of weird when you're an only recruit. I know the portal's changed that a little bit, but I mean, that kid doesn't have any ties to Indiana. I mean, he's from Texas. He's played in Florida for the last couple of years. And I mean, Sherron and I lived in this state, and Todd Leary and Matt Nover and guys like that. Like, we lived in this state. So Indiana was most likely probably going to be a big part of our lives after basketball was over. I doubt that kid's planning on moving to Indiana after basketball is over. So, I mean, kids like that they don't have any ties or binding to the state of Indiana. And it's just the way it is in today's world when you go after 5 stars, and the 5 stars aren't from the state of Indiana. It's just a different world.
Sherron, about being recruited and not necessarily recruiting from your coaching standpoint, because that's not allowed. And I know you guys would never do that, but it's just a player. I'm assuming, because I was never recruited, but I'm assuming you want to feel the love. At least you want to feel wanted and needed. Most importantly,
I think Pat hit the nail on the head. I think in this day and age, there's no loyalty to the program. There's no loyalty to the state. There's no loyalty to the coach. I think nowadays the mantra is the NIL money. Back in those days, it was the loyalty to be able to have the opportunity to go play for Bobby Knight. And I heard you guys' conversation as I joined the podcast. Pat is right. When Coach Knight was there, our roster was 85% Indiana kids. And not every kid on that roster was a 4 or 5-star kid, but they understood Indiana basketball and what it meant to put the jersey on. So I think that's absolutely critical in today's recruiting war, if you will. I think the other piece that really hurts guys, when you NBA guys, you practice for 2 hours and you go home. At the college level, you got to practice for 2 hours, then you have to mentor for 2 hours, then you have to go recruit for another 4 or 5 hours. And I think that's critical. And I think that there's certain coaches at the collegiate level. And I'll even throw Matt Painter's name in there. Those guys get it. They understand the recruiting battle. They understand how much sacrifice it takes. They understand how much travel it takes. It's a grind. And if you're not willing to make that grind, you're going to miss out on the recruitments.
Yeah, Pat, I talked earlier about it's the time investment needed by a college coach. It's crazy because of everything that Sherron just said. It's not just practice, it's planning, it's recruiting, it's forecasting recruiting, it's making the visits, all of those things that you have to do. It takes a crap load of time. Nobody wants to go sit in a high school gym. After you're a coach and you have your own team, the last thing you probably want to do is go sit in another gym watching a lot of other guys play basketball, but that is part of the job.
Oh, I mean, I compare that to what I said when we went to IU, and if we got benched or yelled at or made to go to class or whatever, I said it's comparable to going into the Army or Navy, Air Force and calling parents and saying they make us get up at 4 a.m. Like, what the hell were you thinking you were getting involved in? Well, same thing goes with getting into college coaching. And Sherron did it for a while. I had an opportunity and chose not to. Welcome to that world. I mean, that's what you have to do. And, when sectionals are going on, you got to get out and recruit. You got to meet kids and you got to shake hands and kiss babies. I mean, you can say whatever you want, but it's the way it was. Coach Knight was such a different, it's very unfair to compare him because he got to choose, I hate to say it, but he got to choose who he wanted to play there. He had some. I'm not going to mention his names. He had some great players. He told to go to another school because they knew they weren't going to be a fit at Indiana. That doesn't happen anymore, and you can't live on your name anymore. I mean, it is the NIL and the transfer portal. Everyone's basically on an even playing field now, and you can call that, well, that's not the way it used to be. No, it isn't. So either you're going to have to change with the times, or you're going to go down on a sinking ship. And I still think that kid looked at everything going on up there and how this season's went and the questions, I guess, is the biggest thing, and said, I don't have any ties to Indiana. I'm out of here.
Yeah, Sherron, as both of you guys came in with recruiting classes, as Pat said, but coming in as a lone guy, and then you're looking from afar at the program and what's going on with it and who else might or might not even be there. When you don't have an understanding of who you might even be playing with, that has to be very daunting and maybe off-putting.
No, I think that this portal has really changed the entire scene of the recruiting process. You got guys, think about it from this perspective. As a potential college recruiter, I can go one or two ways. I can build my program around high school kids, or I can go to the portal and I can get men that are 22, 23 years old that have played at the collegiate level for at least 3 or 4 years. I mean, man, from a perspective of longevity, from a perspective of sustainability, I think that it would probably be, I think it would be imperative that you look at both, and maybe even a combination of both. But I think that if you go top heavy and you go and you hit the portal and bring all kids in from the portal, it's going to be hard to create an identity in such a short period of time. But then on the back end of it, if you go and you recruit the high school kids, now you got 18, 19-year-old kids playing against grown men. I mean, man, and then additionally, the second part that you have to think about too is if I recruit a kid from a high school program and they come to my program and I develop them, I get them better for that year, are they going to leave my program the following year? I think that there's so many components that you have to put into play there, specifically when you're going to recruit kids. But I think for us here in the state of Indiana, specifically being in Bloomington, if you go a 250-mile radius in each direction, that covers your recruiting ground. I mean, man, we're in a unique situation because of the Indiana high school coaching that is here. I believe that we are in the epicenter of the recruiting in the Midwest. And I think that it definitely behooves every program in the state of Indiana to look at the Indiana kids, because I think that the Indiana kids has a leg up on most of the kids in the country.
Chemistry of uber importance. Pat, you came in with a gigantic class of guys that had to weld together with a whole bunch of guys that were already there. And I remember last time when Sherron came behind you, you had the talk with him. It was passing of the torch. But that's part of keeping that chemistry and working Sherron into that chemistry that you guys already had going. And as Sherron just mentioned, the portal kind of really fractures that.
Oh, there's no question. Again, Indiana's going to have to, no one wants to admit this. Fans don't want to admit it. Coaches don't want to admit it. Former players like us don't want to admit it. The dynamics of college basketball has changed. That's obvious, but we still can't do things the way Bob Knight did them. And that's the biggest hurdle for fans, because they can't let go of that. And boys, those days are over. It's over. It shouldn't be forgotten. But it's over. So, I'm probably too far on the side of old school. I want to know these players. I want to know their background. I want to know, it's kind of like back when we were kids and you watch NFL or Major League Baseball, you got in college basketball, you knew the teams because they were there for 3 and 4 years, and you knew the players and you knew their stats. I could go through every Major League Baseball or NFL or college basketball team. I could name you every starter. And now I couldn't tell you. Hell, I'm lucky to know 10 guys in the NBA. That you don't know them the way we once did. College basketball, it just is. That's just the way this is because of the NBA and leaving after a year and kids coming from out of state. I mean, like Sherron said, almost our whole roster for how many years was based on Indiana. And then you'd have to go and say, well, I mean, Reynolds was from Ohio or Illinois. I mean, it's not like he was from California.
Right.
So you're talking Midwest. And again, I hate to say it. And again, you have to have talent. He knows it. I know it. Talent's going to win. But you still have to, when you still go get those 5 stars from Louisiana, California, New York, Brooklyn, whatever the case may be, and you forget that Midwest, that's what the Purdue's, the Indianas, the Ohio States, the Big Ten has been based on for years and years and years. And when you start doing this, it's another world.
Sherron, your kids, I know anybody that has the dream of going on to that next level, playing in college, style of play has to be of uber importance to them with their particular game and how their game will fit in someplace. And with that, and in Indiana, style just doesn't seem to change now, which before it didn't. Back in Pat's day, your day, it didn't change that much, but it didn't need to change because it worked. When something is not working as well, there needs to be adjustments, and not seeing those adjustments, that has to be off-putting to players as well.
I think players nowadays specifically look at 2 things, Jim. I think that they, number one, as we spoke about before, they look at the NIL money. Then the second thing that they look at is a direct route to the NBA. And here's the thing that I think that most people don't think about. If you look across the board and you take all of the college players potentially trying to play at the NBA level, I mean, man, there's only 33 teams in the NBA. I mean, man, and I think if I remember the numbers correctly, less than 1% of the college kids get an opportunity to play at the NBA. I mean, man, so we have this deal at the collegiate level that we are catering specifically to NBA talent, but most of the student athletes that we are catering to from an NBA perspective aren't even going to have the opportunity to play in the NBA. So I think that we definitely have to reroute and kind of look at how we have this thing set up, because I think it's doing two things to our student athletes. Number one, it's painting a false reality of the opportunities that they have to go make millions of dollars to play basketball. And the second thing that I think that it does is it pigeonholes our student athletes because they don't have a plan B.
Pat,
and I was one of the kids. I was one of the guys fortunate outside of the basketball arena, if you will.
Pat, before we switch topics and get into you guys taking on in the tournament tomorrow. So now Indiana has 0 recruits, and there is just so much. There's a lot of negativity from the fan base. On top of that, where does Indiana go now? I know you're not talking to anybody there. Everything that you're just like the rest of us. You're on the outside looking in.
That's the thing. Everybody thinks. I told you yesterday we got done with practice, which Sherron and them practiced at, I think, the day before. But I got done with practice at Southridge, and I had like 27 text messages, and I'm like, hell. First thing was, I'm like, is my wife and kids okay? And then I looked and saw what it was, and you're like, wow. I get on the phone. I called Leary. I said, hey, what's going on? So I don't have any information up there. Everybody thinks I do, and I don't. I have no clue. I have not talked to Calvert. I haven't talked to anyone like that. So I can only guess. But honest to God, like, I'm speechless. I do not know what you do. I don't know. I mean, Sherron had a class. I had 7 guys coming in. I mean, I don't know what you do when you don't have a recruit. You're going to have to base everything on the transfer portal. And let's be honest, there are certain kids that are in the transfer portal for the right reasons. And there's certain kids that are just wanting that 5th year or COVID year, say. I get that. But, there's just too many transfers that there's a reason they've been at 2 or 3 different schools over 2 or 3 different years. And if you start falling victim to that and taking those kids, good luck, because it isn't going to work out. But, Leary made a great comment yesterday. He goes, we needed a home run with McNeely or 1 recruit. Now you kind of almost need 2 grand slams in 1 inning. I mean, you have to go out and get a number of kids. And again, is where going to go to the NBA, and you start questioning all that and who's leaving and who's staying. I don't know. I mean, it's it's the damnedest thing I've ever seen, and I didn't think this would ever come to that place. But it's one of the oddest things I've ever seen happen, and it probably is going to happen more times going forward to other schools too. When you're living in that transfer portal, but you got a couple recruits and they don't mesh, they don't equal out, and then when guys leave because there's always something better with the money, like Sherron said. So I have no clue. What they are going to do here on out.
I wanted that to be the last question on that subject, but Sherron, I do want to ask this. Does the fans and the existence of Twitter and social media and all of that, how much does that affect these players, do you think, that are looking at going, the fans of Indiana affect the guys that are potentially going to Indiana?
Oh, I think that it plays a huge part into it, Jim. I mean, man, these kids, they're so focused on social media and the things that they see, the things that they read. I mean, it's part of their daily life. And I think that the fan base plays a huge part in that, in the recruiting process, as well as obviously as the coaches. I would tell you this, I've had the opportunity to see most of the talent in the state of Indiana. And I can tell you guys, we have some really, really good players in the state of Indiana that, in my humble opinion, that could go to IU and play right now. I mean, there's a kid down in Brownstown named Jack Benner that's going to Purdue he could literally go and play right now at Indiana University. I mean, man, so and that's just one example. I mean, man, the Flory kid from Kokomo, super, super talented, going to Kansas. I mean, man, these are guys that's right in our backyard. I mean, man, that I think that obviously is wearing that
Braden
Indiana
Smith
high school
was begging
tag.
to go to IU.
Guaranteed. There's a kid at Center Grove named Smith that's really good. He's shooting 58% from the 3-point line with over 100 attempts. I mean, man, and my question is, specifically being a former player and a current coach, man, is anybody going and recruiting or looking at Jack to see, are they going to Smith's? Are they going to Center Grove? Are they going to Lawrence North? Or, man, are they going to these places to see the kids that's in our backyard and creating these relationships? Like, they should be so excited that an IU coach is there in their gym. They should be so excited. I mean, man, just the passion and the love. Man, for the university and the tradition and the player. I mean, man, it's so much that's involved in it. But right now, I think that it's something that we definitely need to focus on in our recruiting process.
Well, we're going to have some fun because after this, we're going to talk about Jeffersonville taking on Evansville Harrison tomorrow at South Ridge High School at 4 p.m. in the Indiana High School boys basketball tournament. Sherron Wilkerson and Pat Graham with us now. We'll be back with more, brought to you by Bubba's 33 down in Clarksville, right off of I-65. Pizza, burgers, beer. Back with more right after this.
We'll be right back for more Indiana Sports Beat Radio with Jim Coyle, presented by Andy Moore Honda of Bloomington.
In the market. I'm coming down for the game, guys.
It's not going to be much of a game.
What?
Sherron, there's no chance we can play this one.
Long day, my friend.
If we can keep it within 30, we're going to be happy.
Those guys are good, man. They're 20-4.
First of all, I need to know, what is Harrison's colors? What are hers?
Black and red. It's weird. Black and red, and Bossy's red and, well, Bossy and Jeff have similar colors, and Southridge and Evansville Harrison are both black and red. So I mean, it'll be a cutout, I'll tell you that.
If I could wear red, I'll be good, right?
Red, you will not. Somebody will pick you up. You will go home as a winner if you wear red.
Yes. There we go. That's what I'm doing, baby. I'm like, all right, I had to find that out because I did not want to come in with just a single one on the right side. I'm like, I got to either that or I'm wearing gray.
Yeah, it's neutral. We didn't even think about that. We were actually shooting around or practicing yesterday there, and we were out on the floor, and I asked Coach Flanner, I said, are we here? And okay, yeah, we got this corner, and Bossy's in this corner, Jeff's in this corner, Southridge is in this corner, right? So we were just kind of figuring things out. And then I said, damn, everybody's red. And then we all like really not, I mean, kind of Mr. Obvious, but like we all kind of looked at each other like, damn, it's right. And I didn't think about that. I never think about those things. I'm still trying to worry about Singleton and Cooper from Jeff. And so I was like, damn, this red, I'm like, this will be crazy. I said, this will be absolutely insane. Hell, nobody's going to know where anybody's sitting and know where it's split up or anything.
Oh, that's going to be awesome. Who
but
won
Sherron, you're right. You're 100%
game, right
on the kid. I watched your game against Brownstown. Like, that kid can play.
Oh, Pat, Jesus, buddy, man, he reminds me, man. He reminds me.
To hear that you didn't even look at him.
Did not.
You did not look at him.
Didn't look at Braden Smith either.
And we played them this year, man, at their place. They beat us by 12, and obviously, man, I always compare the high school kids to you guys that I've got an opportunity to play with at IU, man. And he's a combination of you and DB combined, man. He's unbelievable. I mean, he's got a pro body right
10
now.
10 seconds.
Market and Table, a part of the Wild Food Group, is your butcher, baker, and fish house, no matter where you live.
This segment is brought to you by Reynolds Family Dentistry in Sellersburg. Welcome back to Indiana Sports Beat Radio with Jim Coyle, presented by Andy Moore Honda of Bloomington.
Welcome back, Indiana Sports Beat Radio here on this Friday, getting you ready for the weekend. And it's going to be a gigantic weekend as for our two guests, Pat Graham and Sherron Wilkerson, former Hoosiers teammates. As a matter of fact, they were on with us earlier this year. It was awesome. They were getting ready to play. And what turned out to be a hell of a game then, it was a 3-point win by Jeffersonville. And Harrison looking for a little payback at this time of year, especially. Pat, you guys lost the first game by 3. What was the key? What were the keys to that game?
Well, between Sherron and I, this is just going to be a bunch of coach talk. So we're not going to slip and give any information, but I'll do the whole thing. They played well. We didn't play very well, all that stuff. I don't think, to be honest with you, when we played earlier, I don't particularly think either team played very well. Really hadn't seen each other play and all that stuff. It was early on in the season. We did not play well. And I'm guessing Sherron will say pretty much the same thing. Their big kid got in foul trouble, who's a hell of a player. Our big kid got in foul trouble, who's a hell of a player. I mean, it was I think both those kids probably combined played maybe 20 minutes. It wasn't, and I'm not blaming the referees or anything, but we didn't play particularly well. And probably kind of from an outsider just coming in to watch two pretty good teams play, they probably were pretty disappointed in both teams because I don't think either team played very well. Now, let's go forward. I mean, Jeffersonville's a hell of a lot better than what they were, and I think we are too. So it'll be a good chess game, to say the least.
Sherron, you run the motion offense, right?
We run a version of the motion offense, yes. I think, Jim, I will be honest with you, and that's one of the things. Quick story. So when I was in high school, man, we averaged 94 points a game in 32 minutes. So due to my lack of knowledge of how the college game was played, I just assumed in 40 minutes we was going to average 104. So I get to IU, and obviously, man, we're running a controlled motion offense. I mean, man, it was like culture shock, right? I mean, and it was a huge adjustment. But as I got older and specifically playing at the professional level, what I didn't realize at the time playing for Coach Knight was that if you can run a motion offense, you can run any offense out there because that motion offense incorporates every action that any other offense would include. I mean, man, so I did not realize the huge advantage, specifically now being a coach, that I had in understanding how to read screens and back cuts and curl cuts and flare cuts. And I mean, man, it's just a huge advantage. And in watching, Harrison play, I mean, man, it's very similar. I mean, man, those guys run a lot of the same actions that we run. And I think it just contributes, or it attributes to the fact that the fundamentals of basketball never change. And Coach Knight, man, at that time was so far ahead of everybody else.
Pat, having played in that type of system, what's it like to coach against that, to try to defend that and to beat it?
It's a hell of a lot easier to prepare for a team that just runs set after set after set after set. And I can remember from Coach Hinton in high school, I can remember playing teams that did that, and basically all you had to do was stop the first initial pass that threw the offense out of whack, your advantage defense. But yeah, I mean, I think Jeffersonville and Harrison are very similar in that we're going to take what the defense gives you, and you can do a little bit of everything. They got a style, and we have a style, and it's just, again, trying to play the best basketball you can at 3 o'clock or 4 o'clock tomorrow. And hopefully they miss a few more shots than we do. But as far as learning, I still go back to I was blessed, different Sherron. I was blessed that I had Coach Hinton, and I learned a type of motion, and thank God I had it, because if I'd have got to IU, like he said, it was totally shock. I mean, to pick this up, it wasn't the easiest thing for certain guys. I probably had a little bit easier just because of my background with Coach Hinton and Coach Dust and how we played. So it's a little bit of a culture shock for kids, I'll tell you that.
Oh, Dust, throw that one name out there. That's a name I hadn't heard in a long time. Holy cow. It should be the excitement level of high school basketball in Indiana is still just fun. Not playing in Seymour for you, Sherron, has got to be a little weird this year with the change in how the tournament is set up, because I grew up going to that gym, watching Pat and the guys before him play, and you played there and everybody afterwards in the biggest gym, and they would fill it. And now guys are down in Pat's part of the country.
Man, I can't.
I think Sherron may have frozen on us. We'll get him back. Yeah, there you go.
Hello?
Yeah, I'm not sure if you can hear us or not, but we'll get Sherron back. I think that he's lost a connection. We'll get him back. But for you, Pat, not playing at Seymour, that's your team at least. I mean, you grew up playing in those games, watching those games, knowing those games. Different setup now with the tournament. Does that make it much of a difference?
Well, that we could do an hour, or I could do an hour-long show on the class basketball thing that still pisses me off, but it is what it is, and move on. But I was going to joke with Sherron, they win sectional, we win sectional, blah, blah, blah. And then the next day or that night, we find out where you play. It could have been Lagodi, it could have been Washington, it could have been Southridge, it could have been Seymour. Selfishly, I wanted to go to Seymour just because it's probably my favorite gym other than Floyd Central in the state of Indiana. But I didn't want to go because I think Sherron and them had already played, obviously, 2 games in sectional. They played at Seymour during the regular season. I'm like, I don't want them to have a 4th game in that gym when we haven't played. So, yeah, I selfishly wanted to go myself just because it's one of my favorites. But I was like, yeah, Sherron and them don't need any more advantage than they already have. So when we found out it was at Southridge, I was a little bit happy.
What are differences? Seymour is such a big gym, holds over 8,000 people. I don't know the capacity of Southridge. What size is that gym?
I don't know. I would probably say it obviously is an old gym. But man, again, we were up there last night. It is really nice. It is a really nice, and they've put a lot of money in it. I know that counties put a lot of money in it, and it's a really, really nice gym. It's a sunken gym. It's an old school gym, to say the least, but I like it. We played there a few years ago, and Silver Creek actually beat us when my son was a junior at Memorial. When they won state that year, and that's where we played. Awful cool gym, and they've done an awful nice job in keeping it up.
Sherron, Pat said he was very happy that he's not going to have to face you guys at Seymour because of your familiarity with that gym and the success you've had there and all that. But so now you've got to go down to his part of the country. Does that make much of a difference for your team?
I think it makes a huge difference, Jim. I do. I think it makes a huge. Obviously, they're probably going to have a huge fan base there that's going to obviously be their sixth man and help them. Hopefully, we're going to get the same support. The gym is absolutely amazing. For my first time having the opportunity to be in the gym and see it, it has an Indiana nostalgic feel to it. Yeah, man, it's very similar to Newcastle's gym. As Pat said, it's kind of in a bowl. Yeah, man, so it's. I feel like I'm in the movie Hoosiers. I mean, man, it's like, it's just a wonderful feel, and it's really hard to put into words.
I cannot wait. I've not been to that gym. I went down to where did I go? I forget. Wherever Trent Sisley played last, I was down there. It's just good to get around to see some of these different gyms. But yeah, Seymour was just always the spot, though, man. I mean, my youth growing up. I just remember, yes, it's extra time. We get to go to Seymour. It was going to be fun. And I don't know, moving around, I guess, can be good because leaving everything the same all the time, it may not allow for growth. But I sure wish you guys were playing in Seymour. I think that would just be one hell of a crowd, loud. And there would still be a lot of red in there, though.
There'd be a lot of red, but think about this. And this is one thing, I don't want to get off on a tangent, but when Sherron played and I played, Seymour was packed. I mean, they were scalping tickets outside. That gym wouldn't be packed tomorrow if us four teams were there. There'd be a hell of a crowd, and kids would think it was awesome. But me and Sherron and you, remembering back in the day, we'd be like, "No, this is okay." So they can do that now because class basketball and all this stuff, and even games being on television now, it's hurt the fans. I shouldn't say it hurts the fans. It's hurt the numbers in the stands, is what I'm saying. And I would say tomorrow will be a pretty decent crowd, just for the simple fact it's not as big as Seymour's gym. But like I said, Sherron, I didn't want you all to play there for the fourth time this year and get that advantage. I made a few phone calls trying to get us moved anywhere. I didn't care. Play in Kentucky for all I care.
It must have worked, man.
I don't know we can get, my friend. Yeah.
I cannot wait to watch this game. Pat, I can't thank you enough as always, and I wish you the best of luck. Sherron, I can't thank you enough as always. I wish you the best of luck. That way I don't have to I'm going to ride the line, baby. I'm going to ride the line. I'll wear red, so I'll be very supportive. And whomever wins, let the chips fall where they may. But I certainly looking forward to a hell of a game, and it's just going to be a blast. But I'm certainly congratulations to both of you for the seasons that you've had and the jobs that you've done. It's fun to watch. It really is. I know the fans enjoy it greatly. Thank you guys for taking time out of your day to spend with us.
Thanks, Jim. Really appreciate it. Yeah. See you guys.
Absolutely. Thank you, Pat. Thank you, Sherron. And that's going to pretty much wrap it up for us here today. We'll have as soon as the show ends, you can go to our YouTube channel and you can find the Mike Woodson presser up there. I know that he was asked about Liam McNeely's decommitment from Indiana and recruiting in general, and his response was, imagine this, I'm not even going to talk about recruiting with you guys. I'm just not. He added that this is going to be a big summer for us. So I'll leave you with that. I cannot thank everybody enough on the program today. Bob Kravitz, of course, for joining us from bobkravitz.com, Tyler Smith from thehoosier.com, and Sherron Wilkerson, the head coach of Jeffersonville, as well as Pat Graham assisting there at Evansville Harrison, Calbert Cheney's old high school. Pat moved to Evansville after playing at IU, and has lived there ever since. He's from Floyd Central, which is close to Jeffersonville, for those that don't know. But so we all grew up in the same area. So greatly appreciate you guys. We'll be back Sunday for After the Game with Todd Leary as the Hoosiers take on Michigan State to close out their regular season. And Todd Leary will be alongside as well. Big thanks to John, the producer, for keeping us between the white lines. Until Sunday, I'm Jim Coyle. I will see you on the radio.
Thanks for listening to Indiana Sports Beat Radio. Be sure to subscribe to our YouTube page for more clips and team coverage of Indiana basketball, football, and more. You can also find full episodes and tons of other content on thehoosier.com. We'll see you next time for another edition of Indiana Sports Beat Radio.